My brother Michael fired me right after stealing the promotion I'd earned, thinking he'd destroyed my career forever. What he didn't know was that I'd been documenting his crimes for months, and his absolute shock when the FBI arrested him was worth every sleepless night I'd spent gathering evidence. My name is David Matthews, and at 28 years old, I thought I understood how family worked until my brother taught me otherwise. For 3 years, I had been building something special at Riverside Tech. While other employees clocked in and out, I stayed late perfecting digital marketing campaigns that brought millions to our company. My desk was covered with client thank you notes, and my computer held strategies that had saved failing accounts. Michael walked into my office that Tuesday morning wearing his expensive suit, and that smile I knew meant trouble. As Senior VP of Operations, he had power, but I had results. Everyone knew the Morrison deal was mine. I had spent 6 months convincing them to trust us with their biggest campaign ever. The $2.3 million contract sat on my desk, waiting for the promotion announcement that would make me marketing director. "David, we need to talk," he said, closing my office door behind him. His voice carried that fake concern he used during layoffs. My stomach dropped. The board made their decision about the marketing director position. I stood up, straightening my shoulders. This was it. 3 years of 70-hour weeks, missed family dinners, and proving myself over and over again. I know it took longer than expected, but the Morrison account really showed what our department can do. Michael sat down in my chair without being invited. Actually, they chose me for the position. I'll be taking over all marketing operations starting today. The words hit me like ice water. You? Michael, you've never worked a single day in marketing. You don't even know how our software works. Leadership isn't about knowing every little detail, he replied, spinning in my chair like a child. It's about vision and management skills, things they don't teach in your computer classes. My hands gripped the edge of my desk. What about the Morrison account? They specifically asked for me to lead their campaign. I'll handle Morrison Industries just fine. In fact, the board also decided we need to cut costs in your department. He paused, watching my face carefully. Your position is being eliminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out within the hour. I stared at him, unable to speak. 3 years of building relationships, creating systems, and delivering results. And he was throwing me away like garbage. You're firing me? Right after I brought in our biggest client ever. I'm restructuring for efficiency, he corrected, clearly enjoying this moment. Don't worry, you'll get a decent reference letter. As Michael stood to leave, I made a decision that would reshape both our futures. I'll need to transfer my files and client information to whoever's taking over my accounts. Just leave everything on your computer. I'll figure it out. He headed for the door, then turned back with mock sympathy. Sorry it had to end this way, little brother. Maybe this will teach you that hard work isn't everything. After he left, I sat in stunned silence for exactly 30 seconds. Then I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small notebook I'd been keeping for the past 6 months. Inside were dates, times, and details that Michael thought nobody had noticed. I had hoped I would never need this information, but my brother had just made that choice for me. Sitting in my car outside the Riverside Tech building, I pulled out my phone with hands that barely shook. The small notebook lay open on my passenger seat, filled with 6 months of careful observations. I had started keeping notes not for revenge, but for protection. When you work closely with someone who takes credit for other people's ideas, you learn to document everything. The Morrison contract had a special clause that Michael obviously hadn't read. As the original creator of their digital strategy, I had negotiated terms that protected both the client and myself. If key personnel were removed from the project without Morrison's approval, they could suspend the entire agreement. James Morrison had specifically requested me by name after our first meeting, saying he trusted my vision for his company's future. I dialed his direct number, knowing this conversation would start a chain reaction Michael never saw coming. "David, perfect timing." Morrison's voice boomed through my car speakers. "I just heard rumors about changes in your department. When can we meet to discuss expanding our partnership? The board loves what you've created so far." "Mr. Morrison, I need to inform you of an important development," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm no longer with Riverside Tech." My brother Michael has taken over the marketing department and will be handling your account moving forward. The silence lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. Your brother? The man who's never attended a single strategy meeting? David, our contract clearly states that you're the lead architect for this campaign. We signed with Riverside specifically because of your track record. I understand your concerns, sir. Michael assures me he can handle the transition. This is unacceptable, Morrison replied, his tone shifting to business mode. We'll need to review our options immediately. Our legal team will be in touch with Riverside by end of business today. After hanging up, I called Lisa, my assistant who had been with me since the department started. She answered on the first ring, her voice tense. David, everyone's talking about what happened. This isn't right. Lisa, I need you to do something important. Document everything that happens over the next few days. Every meeting Michael calls, every client conversation, every decision he makes. Can you do that for me? Already started, she said without hesitation. Half the team is updating their resumes. Nobody trusts him to lead this department. Within 2 hours, my phone rang again. Jennifer Walsh, the company's CFO, sounded stressed. David, we have a problem. Morrison Industries just suspended their contract, citing breach of key personnel agreements. They're demanding either your reinstatement or complete contract termination. I let the silence hang for a moment. I'm no longer an employee, Jennifer. This is Michael's responsibility now. The board is panicking. That contract represents 40% of our quarterly revenue projections. Then maybe they should have considered that before eliminating the person Morrison specifically requested. But Morrison Industries was just the beginning. By 5 o'clock, 2 more clients had called with similar concerns. The digital marketing campaigns I had designed were like complex machines, every piece connected to my personal relationships and expertise. Remove the creator, and the whole system starts to fall apart. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with texts from coworkers expressing support and disbelief. But the most interesting message came from an unknown number. We should talk. There are things about your brother you need to know. That mysterious text message led me to a coffee shop downtown where I met Sarah Jenkins, a former Riverside employee who had quit 6 months earlier. She slid into the booth across from me, her expression serious and concerned. I heard what Michael did to you, she began, stirring her coffee nervously. I left Riverside because of him, but I never said anything. I should have spoken up sooner. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? Michael has been stealing ideas from people for years. Remember the Peterson campaign that got him promoted to senior VP? That was my strategy. I presented it in a team meeting, and 2 weeks later, he pitched it to the board as his own idea. The pieces started falling into place. I thought about all the times Michael had asked seemingly innocent questions about my projects, only to later hear him discussing those same concepts with executives. There's more, Sarah continued, lowering her voice. I accidentally saw his expense reports before I left. He was billing personal trips as client meetings, charging expensive dinners with no business purpose. I took photos because something felt wrong. She pulled out her phone and showed me images of receipts and expense forms. Thousands of dollars in fraudulent charges, all approved because nobody questioned the senior VP's spending. Why didn't you report this? Who would believe me over him? He's the boss's golden boy, and I was just a junior associate. She leaned forward. But you're different. You have credibility, relationships with clients, proof of your value to the company. As I studied the evidence, my phone buzzed with another call from Lisa. David, you need to know what's happening here. Michael called an emergency staff meeting and blamed you for the Morrison contract falling through. He told everyone you sabotaged the deal out of jealousy. My jaw clenched. Not only had he stolen my job, but now he was destroying my reputation to cover his own failures. Also, Lisa continued. Jennifer Walsh from accounting came by asking questions about Michael's expense reports. She seemed really interested in his travel records from the past year. After hanging up, I looked at Sarah across the table. Are you willing to come forward with what you know? If it means stopping him from doing this to other people, yes. That evening, I organized everything in my home office. Sarah's photos, my notebook of observations, copies of client contracts, and documentation of every idea Michael had claimed as his own. The pattern was clear. My brother wasn't just incompetent, he was actively stealing from the company and its employees. But before I could act on any of this information, my phone rang with a call that would accelerate everything. Jennifer Walsh sounded panicked. "David, I need to ask you something confidential. Have you noticed any irregularities in Michael's behavior or spending patterns?" "What kind of irregularities?" "The board is conducting a quiet investigation. Someone submitted an anonymous tip about expense fraud, and when we started looking deeper, we found some concerning patterns." My heart raced. Sarah must have sent the information to the company. "What did you find?" "Large purchases that don't match any client activities, travel to cities where we have no business relationships, payments to consulting firms that may not exist." She paused. "David, if you have any information that could help this investigation, the board needs to know." The moment I had been preparing for had finally arrived. Jennifer Walsh's office felt different when I walked in the next day, carrying a thick folder of evidence. The usually warm and friendly CFO looked stressed, her desk covered with financial documents and legal papers. She gestured for me to sit across from her, and I could see the weight of what she was dealing with in her tired eyes. "Before we begin, I need you to understand the seriousness of this situation," she said, her voice formal and careful. "The board has uncovered evidence of systematic fraud within our organization. What you share today could determine whether we pursue criminal charges." I opened my folder and placed the first document on her desk. This started 6 months ago when I noticed patterns in Michael's behavior. I began keeping detailed records, not for revenge, but because something felt wrong. Jennifer examined my notebook, her expression growing darker with each page. These expense reports show over $80,000 in questionable charges. Personal vacations billed as client meetings, expensive restaurants with no business purpose, payments to companies that don't appear to exist. I cross-referenced his travel dates with our actual client schedules. I explained, pointing to specific entries. He claimed to be meeting with Morrison Industries in Chicago on dates when I was actually handling their account from our office. And this consulting firm, Strategic Solutions, LLC? I researched the business registration. It's owned by his college roommate, Tom Bradley. They've been creating fake invoices and splitting the payments for months. Jennifer set down the papers and looked at me directly. "David, why didn't you come forward earlier? This level of fraud could have seriously damaged our company." The question I had been dreading hung in the air between us. "Because he's my brother." I kept hoping I was wrong, that there was some explanation. I documented everything just in case, but I never wanted to use it. "What changed your mind?" "He didn't just fire me, Jennifer. He destroyed 3 years of my work, damaged relationships with clients who trusted me, and then blamed me for the problems he created. At some point, family loyalty has to give way to doing what's right." Sarah Jenkins arrived an hour later, bringing additional evidence I hadn't seen before. Her documentation went back even further, showing a pattern of idea theft and financial irregularities that painted a picture of systematic corruption. "The Peterson campaign wasn't the only one," she explained to Jennifer. "He took credit for the Williams redesign, the Foster social media strategy, and at least 4 other major projects that junior staff developed." Jennifer's phone rang, interrupting our meeting. She answered with a tense yes, and her face immediately changed. "He's here? Now? Escort him to conference room B and tell him to wait." She hung up and turned to us. "Michael just arrived demanding to know why accounting is reviewing his expense reports. He seems agitated." Through Jennifer's office window, I could see my brother pacing in the hallway, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. His tie was crooked, his hair messy, and he kept checking his phone with frantic gestures. "The board meeting is in 2 hours," Jennifer continued. "We'll present everything we've found, including your evidence. Are you prepared to testify about what you witnessed?" I nodded, feeling a mix of determination and sadness. My brother made his choices. Now he has to face the consequences. "There's something else you should know," Jennifer added, pulling out another folder. "Our IT department discovered that Michael accessed confidential client files he had no authorization to view. We think he was selling information to competitors. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Selling client information? That's not just fraud, that's corporate espionage. 3 of our former clients reported that their strategies appeared in competitors' campaigns shortly after meetings with Michael. The timeline matches perfectly with his unauthorized file access. Sarah leaned forward. That explains why the Henderson account suddenly went to Riverside's biggest competitor last year. They used the exact strategy Henderson had shared with us in confidence. As we prepared for the board meeting, I realized that Michael's corruption went far deeper than simple expense fraud. He had been systematically betraying the trust of clients, employees, and the company itself. The brother I thought I knew had been living a double life, stealing not just money but the creative work and business relationships that other people had built through honest effort. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Michael just tried to access your old computer files, but IT blocked him. He's asking everyone where you stored your client contact information. He looks desperate. The board meeting was about to begin, and my brother had no idea that his entire world was about to collapse around him. The board meeting erupted into chaos the moment Michael realized what was happening, but nothing prepared me for the complete meltdown that followed. I sat at the far end of the conference table, watching my brother's face cycle through confusion, anger, and pure panic as Jennifer Walsh presented each piece of evidence against him. These expense reports show systematic fraud totaling $127,000 over 18 months, Jennifer announced to the 7 board members. Personal vacations, expensive meals with no business purpose, and payments to fake consulting companies. Michael shot up from his chair, his voice cracking with desperation. This is ridiculous. David is obviously trying to frame me because he's jealous about the promotion. He's been planning this revenge scheme since day one. Board Chairman Robert Davis raised his hand for silence. Michael, sit down. We're not finished. The evidence also shows unauthorized access to confidential client files, Jennifer continued, and we have reason to believe this information was sold to competitors. The Henderson, Morrison, and Williams accounts all reported strategy leaks that directly benefited our rivals. Michael's face went white. He looked around the table at board members he'd charmed for years, searching for any sign of support. You're going to believe accusations from a disgruntled employee over someone who's brought millions in revenue to this company. Actually, said board member Patricia Stone, the revenue you claimed credit for appears to have been generated by strategies developed by other employees. We have documentation showing you systematically stole ideas from junior staff members. Sarah Jenkins entered the room at that moment, carrying additional files. Michael's expression shifted to pure rage when he saw her. Sarah? What's she doing here? She quit months ago. Ms. Jenkins brought evidence of intellectual property theft dating back 3 years, Chairman Davis explained calmly. She documented instances where you claimed credit for her work, including the Peterson campaign that led to your promotion to Senior VP. This is insane, Michael shouted, his composure completely gone. You're destroying my career based on lies and jealousy. I spoke for the first time since entering the room. Michael, everything in these files can be verified. Bank records, email timestamps, security footage of your office access after hours. This isn't about jealousy. This is about accountability. Accountability, he screamed, pointing at me across the table. You planned this whole thing. You documented my every move like some kind of stalker, waiting for your chance to destroy me. I documented suspicious activity because I was trying to protect the company, I replied, keeping my voice steady. You made the choice to steal money, steal ideas, and betray client confidentiality. I just made sure there was a record of it. Jennifer placed another folder on the table. There's more. Our investigation found that Michael attempted to sell confidential client lists to 3 different competitors. We have emails with price negotiations and meeting arrangements. The room fell silent except for Michael's heavy breathing. Board member James Wilson leaned forward. Michael, do you have any response to these allegations? For a moment, my brother looked like the scared kid I remembered from childhood, caught in a lie too big to escape. Then his expression hardened with pure hatred as he stared at me. Fine. You want to know the truth? Yes, I took some liberties with expense reports. Yes, I used ideas that other people suggested. That's how business works. Everyone cuts corners. Everyone takes credit for team efforts. Taking credit for team efforts is different from systematic fraud, Chairman Davis responded coldly. And selling client information to competitors isn't cutting corners, added Patricia Stone. It's corporate espionage. Michael's last attempt at defense crumbled completely. David, how could you do this to your own brother? We're family. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of 3 years of stolen credit, manipulated situations, and betrayed trust. Family doesn't steal each other's work. Family doesn't destroy careers out of jealousy. Family doesn't commit crimes and expect loyalty to cover it up. You were always jealous of me, he shouted back. Dad's favorite son, the golden boy who could do no wrong. You couldn't stand that I got promoted over you. I was never jealous of you, Michael. I was disappointed in you. There's a difference. Security arrived at that moment, called by Jennifer when Michael's behavior became increasingly erratic. 2 officers stood by the door as Chairman Davis delivered the final verdict. Michael Matthews, you are terminated immediately for cause. All company property must be returned, including your laptop, phone, and access cards. You are banned from company premises pending criminal investigation. Criminal investigation? Michael's voice cracked with terror. The FBI will be contacted regarding corporate espionage charges, Davis continued. The district attorney will receive our fraud documentation for potential prosecution. As security escorted Michael from the building, he turned back one last time with pure venom in his eyes. This isn't over, David. You think you've won, but you've destroyed our entire family over your petty revenge. I watched him disappear down the hallway, feeling no satisfaction, only sadness for what he could have been if he'd chosen honesty over shortcuts. 6 months later, I stood in the corner office that had once belonged to Michael, watching news crews pack up their equipment from the parking lot below. The local business journal had just published their feature story about Riverside Tech's remarkable recovery from corporate scandal, and my phone hadn't stopped ringing with interview requests. The nameplate on my door read, David Matthews, Chief Marketing Officer, a position the board had created specifically for me after recognizing that their previous structure had been fundamentally flawed. Instead of separating strategy from operations, they wanted someone who understood both the creative and business sides of marketing. The quarterly numbers just came in, Jennifer Walsh said, entering with a genuine smile for the first time in months. Revenue is up 280% from last year, and we've regained every client we lost during the transition. Morrison Industries had not only returned, but had brought 3 additional companies with them, specifically requesting to work with me personally. The trust I'd built over 3 years of honest work had survived the scandal and grown stronger. More importantly, Jennifer continued, the company culture survey shows the highest employee satisfaction ratings in our history. People feel safe reporting problems now, knowing they'll be taken seriously. I turned from the window, still adjusting to the view from the executive floor. It's not about the numbers, Jennifer. It's about building something people can believe in. Speaking of believing in things, she said, your brother's sentencing hearing is next week. His lawyer called asking if you'd provide a character reference to help reduce his sentence. The request didn't surprise me. Michael had been convicted on 12 counts of fraud and 3 counts of corporate espionage. Federal prosecutors were seeking 4 years in prison, but his lawyer was arguing for reduced time based on family circumstances and cooperation with the investigation. What did you tell them? That it's your decision entirely. The company won't influence your choice either way. I had been thinking about this moment for weeks. Michael's crimes had hurt real people beyond just me. Sarah Jenkins had struggled to find work after leaving Riverside because he'd given her negative references to prevent her from exposing his theft. 3 major clients had lost competitive advantages because he sold their strategies. Dozens of employees had been passed over for promotions so he could advance his own career. I'll write the letter, I said finally, but I'll tell the complete truth about what he did and why it mattered. Even after everything he put you through, especially because of everything he put me through. Justice isn't about revenge, Jennifer. It's about acknowledging the full impact of someone's choices. My assistant Lisa knocked on the doorframe. "David, your father is here to see you." Dad walked in looking older than his 65 years, the stress of the past months evident in his posture. We hadn't spoken much since the trial, both of us struggling with how to handle the family rift that Michael's actions had created. "I read the article in the Business Journal," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "I'm proud of what you've accomplished here." "Thank you. I also heard about the character reference request." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Your mother, and I hope you'll find it in your heart to help Michael, despite what he did." I leaned back in my chair, studying the man who had taught me about integrity and hard work from an early age. "Dad, I'm not going to lie to help reduce his sentence. He made choices that hurt a lot of people. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to remember that he's still your brother. And I'm asking you to remember that he's also a criminal who nearly destroyed this company and stole opportunities from innocent people." We sat in silence for several minutes, both recognizing that this conversation represented a fundamental disagreement about family loyalty versus moral responsibility. "I'll write the letter," I said finally, "but I'll include everything, both the brother I grew up with and the man who betrayed everyone's trust. The judge can decide which version matters more." 2 weeks later, Michael was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison. The judge noted that while his family background and early career showed promise, his systematic deception and betrayal of trust warranted significant consequences. I received a letter from him 3 days after sentencing. Inside was a single handwritten paragraph. "David, I know saying sorry doesn't fix what I did. I spent so many years trying to prove I was better than you that I forgot how to be better than myself. You deserved a brother who lifted you up instead of one who tried to tear you down. Maybe when I get out, we can figure out how to be family again." I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer next to the original notebook where I'd documented his crimes. Forgiveness would be a long process, but accountability had been served. The company was thriving. Good people were being rewarded for honest work, and I'd learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's worst behavior. The best revenge, I realized, hadn't been destroying Michael's career. It had been building something better than what he'd tried to tear down.